devices.
Wow, you guys are lifesavers.
That's what you think.
In action.
The Walking Dead Dead City, exclusively on AMC and AMC+.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. The hottest temperatures of the year so far will soon reach the eastern half of the U.S. as a brutal heat dome starts to build over the weekend. Millions from the Midwest to the East Coast will face a level 4 out of 4 extreme heat risk Sunday through at least Thursday.
You can go through one day of dangerous heat, usually okay, but once you get to days 2, 3, and 4, that's when it really starts to impact our bodies.
Israeli and Iranian officials vowing to keep fighting during a UN Security Council meeting Friday. The countries exchanging new strikes, including an Iranian attack Friday on northern Israel that left nearly 24 people injured. Israel claims it has destroyed half of Iran's missile launchers. Both sides are facing international pressure to find peace.
There are moments when the choices before us are not just consequential, they are defining. This is such a moment.
Cybersecurity officials warn that billions of login credentials have been leaked from major platforms like Google, Facebook, and Apple. The new report discovered a total of 16 billion compromised credentials, estimating some consumers had login info leaked from more than one account. And that is a look at your Spectrum News in 90.
This program focuses on the future of our country and its people. With a new administration in the White House and a new Congress, we are exploring the new people and policies and power that are shaping the nation. This week, the big deal was the evolving situation in the Middle East as Israel and Iran continue to trade deadly attacks. President Trump is vowing to make a decision in the next couple of weeks on whether or not the United States will get involved militarily, as the administration holds out hope for peace talks to end the conflict. But congressional approval would likely be needed for military action, and not all Republicans are on board with the U.S. striking Iran. On Friday, the president said that his own director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is wrong about Iran not having nuclear weapons. Here's what President Trump had to say about the situation.
I will say this, it's very hard to stop when you look at it. Israel's doing well in terms of war, and I think you would say that Iran is doing less well. It's a little bit hard to get somebody to stop.
What intelligence do you have that Iran is building a nuclear weapon? Your intelligence community has said they have no evidence that they are at this point.
Well, then my intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
Your director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
Joining me now with more are two top political analysts. Holly Gregory is an anchor for Spectrum Bay News 9 in Tampa, Florida. Tim Boyum is a political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Raleigh, North Carolina. And Holly, from the very start of his political career, President Trump has promised to keep the U.S. out of Middle East wars, at least unnecessary ones. And a big part of his base actually wants him to keep that promise now. That domestic political calculation is part of what he's thinking about at this moment, right?
He is no doubt very much aware of this division that does exist in the party right now. You have some in the base of the Republican Party who want nothing to do with this, no more foreign war involvement, as he's promised the president over the years not to get us involved in. Then you have others who see this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, who are more hawkish, who want to defend our ally Israel, and who want to take on the #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran, and stop them from getting a bomb. You have some very loud voices on the right, though, right now. Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are saying, do not touch this conflict. Please, Mr. President, just stay out of it. Trump was asked about this a couple of days ago. He said that Tucker should apologize for some of the comments that he made. He called him kooky. And he said, look, ultimately, whatever I decide, my base is going to back me up on this. And I think that he is probably right about that. But the details are going to be what really matters here, what he decides, what happens, because there is a huge difference between a fast and furious airstrike on a nuclear facility and then getting bogged down and dragged into something that is boots on the ground, or Iran maybe has something up their sleeve we don't know about. They retaliate against our assets in the region. We get sucked in to something longer and more drawn out. There's no support for another long foreign war. So I think the real part of the calculus for him right now, Errol, is how could I strike without getting sucked into something that is much longer and much deeper and drawn out, because nobody wants to see that happen.
Okay, and Tim, extensive military involvement would require approval from Congress, which might not be easy, even with a Republican majority, right? I mean, even in the wake of the 9/11 attacks, I remember there was a ferocious debate before lawmakers approved the use of force in Afghanistan and Iraq. Are we likely to see a repeat of those debates now?
I don't think there's any question we will, and we are seeing some of it play out, even if it's not members of Congress, like Holly was just talking about. I mean, you couldn't go anywhere this week without seeing that Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz debate, interview, whatever you want to call it, that was all over social media and even mainstream media that played out. You know, interesting, it kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole about this, though, about what Congress would and would not need to approve. I mean, Congress technically has not declared a war since World War II. There's a War Powers Act in 1973, the Vietnam era, which kind of reduced the presidential's ability to take military action without certain criteria. And then there's the post 9/11 resolutions that allowed it with certain things related to post 9/11. This would not fit into that. And of course, the president may just act anyways. And his lawyers, the DOJ and whatnot, to try to prove why he believes he can. And incidentally, presidents on both sides of the aisle have argued that they have the authority to conduct strikes. So I think defining what or what not these actions may be will play a role in that. But yeah, if it gets down to congressional approval, it's going to be a dogfight, and largely we pay attention to the Republican side of the equation there.
Right. So, Holly, there's congressional approval, and then there's public approval. Recent polls show that big bipartisan majorities of the public think that Iran getting access to nuclear weapons is a serious problem, but there's much less support for the U.S. entering another war. About half of all of us don't want to see military strikes in Iran. So that's something that has got to be taken into account as well.
Yeah, Errol, can be hard to get 70 to 80% of Americans right now to agree on anything. Those are some big numbers that we have seen recently in a couple of polls, including one from Fox News that shows, upwards of 70% all the way up to 82% of people believe, and this is Republicans and Democrats, that Iran is a national security threat. Don't want them to get weapons of mass destruction. And I think what we saw with Hamas on October 7th attacking Israel, knowing they were backed by Iran, the horrors of that playing out, I think that has fed into knowing the danger of Iran. Also, we've seen for years the chants in Iran of death to America, death to Israel, promising to wipe Israel off the map if they get that capability. So there is very much agreement in the U.S., the American people, that Iran is a national security threat. But like you said, it changes a little bit in the public perception of how to deal with that. The Washington Post has a new poll out that shows 45%, still a pretty high number, would support U.S. airstrikes on Iran. 25% said no, and another 30% were unsure about that. So I think if you take this very complex issue right now, and this huge decision that Trump is weighing, and you boil it down to its simplest form, if this last-ditch effort at diplomacy that he's allowing doesn't work, And let's face it, Iran has never given any indication that they're willing to give up their nuclear weapons. If that doesn't work, then we have to take Trump at his word. And what has he said over and over and over again that he's been crystal clear on is, I will not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. So if diplomacy fails, I think we see the path that this is headed down.
The war, or even the threat of war in the Middle East, inevitably endangers shipping in the Gulf, in the Straits of Hormuz, and elsewhere. Do we know if all of this activity and saber rattling now, and frankly missiles falling, is it going to raise the price of gasoline? Are we going to start to notice this?
I think there's a strong chance of that. I mean, oil prices rose 3% again this week. It's the highest, I think, since January at this point. Iran is one of the top producers in OPEC. And so if this continues, I don't think there's any question it's going to be the case. Although I will say a lot of analysts out there in this profession believe that it would be limited probably, and if it was a short-term action, that there's enough buildup of reserves that it would not be a major problem. But politically speaking, it could be a problem for the president, right? I mean, he's promised all these things about lowering prices and whatnot. And when they're talking about inflation and what things have dropped, they pointed to gas prices for a long time. And even if it is or is not his fault, the president often, by both parties, is given credit or blame for gas prices. And so for politically, if this continued for months on end, it could be a problem for the president politically, too.
All right. Thanks very much, Tim. Thank you, Holly. Always great talking with you both. We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, efforts are growing to ban cell phone use in public schools all around the country, from New York to Missouri to California. We'll tell you why some parents are backing that move while others are voicing concerns. Stay with The Big Deal.
Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Bring it to the party. Bring it to the top. Bring it to the party. Never gonna stop.
Enjoy. Unwind. Connect. With Spectrum TV On Demand. From the latest hit movies you've been waiting to watch to your favorite comfort shows and more, all available instantly for you to stream. Create the all-around entertainment experience you've always wanted with Spectrum TV On Demand. Browse over 80,000 on-demand titles today.
Being a cowboy, well, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
watching The Big Deal. In 2023, Florida became the first state to enact legislation regulating student use of cell phones in schools. Just 2 years later, the No Phones in Schools movement has gained enormous steam. More than 24 states have followed in Florida's footsteps, and more are expected to join. It's all in response to data that shows the harmful mental health effects of cell phones on kids and especially young adults. Spectrum National reporter Chris Welch shows us why it has become a bipartisan rallying cry and what those who oppose this movement have to say.
I would have my phone like under the desk.
There is no question.
Scrolling through like Instagram or on TikTok in the middle of class.
When it comes to kids, especially teens,
I was focusing more on like what's on my phone.
Phones are an uphill battle.
Because of my phone, I procrastinate a lot.
High school senior Neil Thacker does it just as much.
Infinite amount of content.
But he holds an opinion that might not be too popular with his classmates. Not at first, anyways. He helped lead the push in Los Angeles for a district-wide cell phone ban in schools.
I am constantly surrounded by cell phones. Instagram, TikTok, any other social media does affect our mental health.
So I got a phone call from the counselor at school letting me know that my son David had expressed some suicidal ideations.
Mileva Rapaski says her son David was being picked on because his parents wouldn't allow him to have social media accounts. It became the reason she co-founded the Phone-Free Schools movement in 2023.
We spent probably 18 months interviewing psychologists and psychiatrists and other researchers in the field and administrators and teachers to really gain an understanding of what that problem was.
The group now advocates that phones be inaccessible the entire day, and that could mean kept in an administrator's office, sealed in locked pouches made by a third-party company, or simply put in numbered pockets like these.
To try to pretend that we could be good stewards of teaching kids how to use those cell phones correctly for all students, I think is a pretty naive approach.
Kathy Steinhoff is a former teacher who remembers that when they first came out, smartphones were a tool in class.
We lost the battle of being able to teach kids a good way to use their phone because as soon as they opened that phone up, YouTube was there, social media was there.
She's now a representative in the Missouri State House, and a bill she introduced would ban cell phone use for students during the school day. Missouri's governor is expected to sign it into law any day now.
It clearly is just sweeping the nation.
In fact, more than half of U.S. states now have laws banning or regulating cell phones in schools, and 10 states mandate the ban be in place the entire school day, from bell to bell, with no access between periods or at lunch.
Instead of looking at memes, look at their math.
New York recently passed a ban, championed into law by Governor Kathy Hochul, that goes further than any state so far. A full-day cell phone ban for all grades K through 12.
I don't know how it's going to actually play out.
New York parent Deborah Alexander is skeptical.
The second you take something away completely and say, I know best, all they want is to get at it more. So we're fetishizing phone use.
Alexander also says schools should be doing a better job teaching kids how to use their phones in a healthier way.
The idea of doing it responsibly, which is something they're going to have to do as adults, doesn't get taught.
To that, Steinhoff would say,
I think our schools have tried that and had that idea, and we haven't been very effective.
But if you talk to kids at schools where bans are already implemented, you might be surprised by what you hear.
Now that we're used to it, I really think it was for the better.
Chris Welch joins me now with more. And Chris, one of the arguments we hear from opponents of this movement is that phones are needed for emergencies, whether it's coordinating pickups with parents or, God forbid, a school shooting or weather emergency and so forth.
Exactly. God forbid a school shooting. That's the one that comes up most often among parents who are really concerned and maybe opposed to these rulings. And that is because school security and safety experts have said, look, in the event of a school shooting, they want kids to be focused on the teacher's instructions and paying attention to what they need to do rather than being distracted by their phones. Another reason is because phones, whether they're on vibrate or loud mode, whatever it is, they could make a noise if kids are hiding in a school and give away that location. They also say that a lot of times phone lines get clogged during emergencies like these, and they don't want kids on them when emergency crews and emergency services may need to be using those same lines.
Interesting point. So now when we see roughly half the states are going in this direction, with 10 states putting in full bans from start to the ending of school, is this the kind kind of thing that Congress or even the White House might want to get involved in?
Even as we talk, in addition to the half the states, there are more states and governors that have this bill on their desk. Within the next few days, we could be seeing more. But as of right now, Errol, there's no hard talk about a federal ban on phones in schools. The closest thing we've come, actually, just this week, there was 2 freshman senators from Indiana and Michigan. They've advanced a bill to ban phones in schools that are for kids of military members. That is where it's limited to at this point. Now, in terms of what else the federal government has done in the past, say last year, there was legislation introduced that would study the impact of phones in schools, and the federal government, the Federal Department of Education, has put out there, here are some guidelines, here are some policies we think states and school districts could follow if they put something in order. But as far as mandating it themselves, we're not there yet.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. Great reporting. Thanks a whole lot.
You bet.
We are not done just yet. Coming up next, the Supreme Court is winding down with some high-profile cases still on the docket. We'll bring you a full report from the nation's capital in 2 minutes. Stay with The Big Deal.
For the millions of school-age children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive, regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms. Available on the Spectrum News app.
Spectrum with Paramount Plus is the entertainment destination.
You're gonna love this.
Getting oil out of the ground's the most dangerous job in the world.
It's so good to see you.
Come on!
Right now, I am in first gear. Would you like to see me shift to 6?
Stream a mountain of the entertainment you love on Paramount Plus. Included in Spectrum TV Select plans at no extra cost.
What are you doing in there?
What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Watching The Big Deal. The U.S. Supreme Court's term will conclude at the end of this month when the justices go on summer recess. Traditionally, the court announces its most important decisions around this time, at the end of the term, and there are several high-profile cases still on the docket, including birthright citizenship that could be decided next week. Spectrum News political reporter Reuben Jones joins me from outside the Supreme Court, which is obviously undergoing some renovations there. And Reuben, this week the court upheld a ban by the state of Tennessee on allowing for hormone blockers and other medical treatments for transgender children. Is that a setback for trans rights, or was it complicated by the fact that this actually involved children as well?
Yeah, sure, Errol. Certainly a major setback for people who are transgender. This was not necessarily a surprise. Keep in mind, around half of states have similar laws to Tennessee that do ban gender transition care for minors. So this upholds them. But as you say, Errol, this only does apply to minors, still though significant. And of course, this comes amidst the Trump administration's actions that really do target people who are transgender. And of course, we have seen similar actions and language around this issue from Republicans in Congress as well as state Republicans in places all across the country.
Okay, now the court I know has a case on that on the surface at least is about Trump's effort to strike down birthright citizenship, but the Constitution is actually fairly clear on this matter. If you're born here, you are a citizen. It's right there in the Constitution. But explain this larger battle that the administration is fighting here. The Supreme Court is really trying to sort of address the issue on the table, but the Trump administration is actually looking to fight kind of a side battle that's worth talking about, right?
Sure, and it's a bit complicated, but as you say, Errol, the law here crystal clear on the question of birthright citizenship. It's a policy that's been in place since Congress ratified the 14th Amendment in 1868. What this case does is take a closer look, rather, at lower court judges, the powers that they have. When they issue a ruling, does it have immediate national effects, which is known as a nationwide injunction? Now, the argument for weakening the power of lower court judges is that you've got some groups doing what's known as judge shopping, going to more sympathetic lower court judges that may rule in their favor. And so you've got that happening around the country. Think about the case that happened not too long ago in Texas, where a lower court judge ruled against the mifepristone drug, the abortion pill. So that's sort of an example of that. The argument, though, for allowing nationwide injunctions is that it's not feasible to bring an issue to so many different lower court judges around the country. This case uses birthright citizenship really as a vehicle for trying to tear down national injunctions. And of course, this is incredibly significant, Errol, because you have judges around the country looking at executive orders that President Donald Trump has put in place and them being challenged by these lower judges as having national impact. So the effects of this decision really could have significant implications on this question of executive orders from the president. And of course, the president has signed so many of them in his first few months in office.
Okay. And Ruben, as I mentioned earlier, the court is set to go on its summer recess next week, after next week. What else are we watching for as far as big decisions that could be coming down in the next week or so?
Yeah, two quick ones I'll tell you about here, Errol. And the first is a South Carolina case which allows states to ban Medicaid recipients from seeking services from Planned Parenthood. Keep in mind, Planned Parenthood does not just offer abortion services, so this would be incredibly significant for states around the country if they were to try and ban Medicaid recipients from getting care from Planned Parenthood. The other case is whether to uphold a Texas law requiring age certification before accessing pornography websites. So, Errol, still a number of cases and decisions to come down from the Supreme Court.
Okay, we'll have plenty to talk about. Thanks very much, Ruben. And thank you all for joining us for this episode of The Big Deal. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to your local Spectrum station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal.
people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Are you ready for the ultimate entertainment experience? Spectrum is bringing together the streaming apps you love. Plus, live TV for sports, entertainment, and news. All in one place, across your devices. So no matter when or where you are, it's all here. Spectrum.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your